talk and discussion. And I know that my group knows a bit, but I had the pleasure of meeting Momoyo back in 2018 when I visited the Reversible Destiny Lofts in Tokyo, or just outside of Tokyo, with both my students and my family. And my wife and my kids and I stayed for a couple nights, so it was quite amazing to experience the work of Arakawa and Gins firsthand. And if you saw the announcement for today, the little boy running up the wall is my son, Archie. But we had an amazing time there. And so we're going to hear much more about that today. But just to give you a bit of background, I'm Momoyo. Momoyo is the director of Arakawa and Gins Tokyo office, and the director and a board member of the Reversible Destiny Foundation, which is based in New York. After studying fine arts in Tokyo, Momoyo moved to Costa Rica, where she worked as a professor of art for 5 years, researching Latin American and Caribbean art. In 1999, she encountered Arakawa, with whom she started working on the Reversible Destiny projects. And in 2002, she established the Arakawa and Gins Tokyo office with Madeline Gins in Arakawa, where she is currently based and continues to work today. Her passion is to continue to develop the Reversible Destiny in the here and now, and through this work, pass on. I'm going to just mute you right now, just because I can hear myself. That's possible. Her passion is to continue to develop Reversible Destiny in the here and now, and through this work, pass on Arakawa and Gins' extraordinary artistic, architectural, scientific, and philosophical legacy to future generations. In addition to the office, Momoyo is part of a research group at Kansai University called Studies of the Architectural Body, and often gives lectures on Arakawa and Gins, Reversible Destiny at universities and colleges in Japan and abroad. We're so lucky to have her here today, live from the Reversible Destiny Lofts. So please, everyone, virtually join me in welcoming Momoyo Homma. And I'm just going to go ahead and mute myself so you can talk.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, William. I'm very honored to have this opportunity today. Again, I'd like to express my gratitude to William, who recalled his stay and visit at the loft and made this wonderful invitation to this lecture. And also to Irene, who's been supporting us to realize this lecture. Today I'm going to introduce Reversible Destiny projects. Reversible Destiny projects originally launched by artists and architects Arakawa and Madeline Gins. As you are aware, I'm at one of the apartments of the Reversible Destiny Lofts, Mitaka, one of the built Reversible Destiny projects. I think this, I believe this was where William and his family were staying. And you can see sphere room and bumpy floor and colorful cube rooms. And I don't know if you can see tube bathroom, etc. Sorry for moving this camera. I really hope that you all can come and visit the lofts someday, taking this lecture opportunity, I'd like to start with a very nice video, which was originally made by NHK, Japan's only public broadcaster, because it is quite difficult to explain this unique architecture without body experience. In this video, you will get to know more about not only the architecture, but also the artists, architects Arakawa and Madeline Gins, and their background. It's about 15 minutes movie, and I got the permission from NHK to show this footage today because sometimes they are very strict in copyright issue, etc. But they say it's okay to use for educational purpose. Lucky us. So Irene, could you please start the video?
Museums.
Oh, there we go.
Know Japan better. Head to where the art is. Close to art. This time, we're visiting the Reversible Destiny Lofts Mitaka. To get there from Tokyo Station, it's a 40-minute train ride on the JR 20 line. Then from Musashi Sakai Station, it's just a 10-minute bus ride. Mitaka is a Tokyo satellite city with 3 large rivers and plenty of lush greenery. Its access to Tokyo and close proximity to the verdant Inokashira Park make it a popular tourist destination. Walking among a quiet residential area reveals this quirky and colorful building. It attracts over 1,000 visitors annually, who marvel at the structure as a work of art. Contrary to appearances, it's actually a small apartment complex.
今日ね、階段登っていいんだって。やったー。よいしょ。
The 3-story building contains 9 units. 5 of them are rented out as apartments. The interior is awash in vibrant colors. There are 4 rooms surrounding a kitchen in the center. Every room has a surprisingly unique design. And then there's the floor. It's bumpy.
The lofts are painted in a veritable rainbow of colors, inside and out, 14 of them to be exact. No matter where you look, 6 or more colors are always visible. The idea behind it is that our eyes naturally adjust to avoid overstimulation. When presented with this rich variety, we acclimate naturally between strong and weak colors to suit our personal preferences.
Merry and colorful, this housing complex was designed, in the words of its creators, so as not to die. Japanese artist Arakawa Shusaku and his partner, American poet Madeline Gins, designed the eclectic lofts.
I heard from Arakawa himself that an experience from his childhood inspired him to become an artist. He was part of a generation that was forced to flee to survive the war. From then on, there was something inside him that ceaselessly questioned the nature and purpose of death. A voice asking over and over again, why do people have to die? When people he knew died, it brought pain and sadness to those around them. He found himself wondering what he could possibly do in situations like these. He had a revelation. What if people didn't have to die anymore? That experience left an indelible mark. He wanted to work to overcome death. After digging deep, he realized that only one profession fit the bill. He decided to become an artist.
Arakawa quickly developed his own unique vision. Then, in 1961, he set off alone to live in New York City. There he met Marcel Duchamp, a master of contemporary art. Duchamp, Arakawa realized, was already exploring the themes and ideas he was so acutely fascinated with.
Arakawa wasn't trying to surpass Duchamp. Deep down inside, he'd always had this introspective attitude toward mortality. He sought to overcome his fear of death and had something of an academic interest in the pursuit of transcending mortality itself.
In 1962, he met his future partner, Madeline Gins. Together, they would explore a theme they shared a mutual interest in: the elimination of death. Their first project together was the mechanism of meaning. This experimental work includes a request. Please think only of the dot, not of the X's. This instruction to ignore a forest of X's and focus on a lone dot disrupts the viewer's sense of subjectivity.
What? How can I? You ask yourself how you're supposed to follow the directions. You start wondering why we don't question so-called common sense. Shouldn't we be more questioning? Is there really nothing we can do to change things? The work is full of these kinds of exercises, which get us to think in this way, to ask these kinds of questions.
The work interrogates the idea of death, which we accept as a given. The mechanism of meaning earned Arakawa and Gins worldwide acclaim, but the pair would depart from painted works going forward.
絵を描くっていうものの限界を知ったんですよ。芸術っていうのは最後には見る側が全てを作り上げるって言ったんですよ。そうなると今度は見る側をどのように作るかという方に回らない限りね、芸術の永遠性がないわけですね。
Arakawa and Gins would go beyond the boundaries of the art world, seeking a mutual interaction between a work of art and its observers. The Reversible Destiny Lofts Mitaka are a realization of this idea.
This idea of reversible destiny was something that Arakawa and Gins reference frequently in their works. They describe the lofts as a place where one would be able to reverse destiny, changing the fate given to them.
You don't have to be a resident to explore the lofts. Visitors can rent out rooms for short-term stay. Additionally, tours of the complex are typically held a few times each month.
There are a few areas where the lofts differ from traditional housing. The flooring has those slalom-like bumps, for example. The larger ones are designed to fit an adult's arches. The smaller ones are designed in a way that they might fit a child's. Everyone who comes through on a tour naturally finds themselves wanting to cup the arches of their feet over the bumps. It's quite fascinating. Before we explain how to use the space, everyone moves to physically match their bodies with it on their own, like a natural impulse.
Helen Keller served as an inspiration for the building's iconic design.
Would Helen Keller have liked to live here? That was the question that Arakawa and Gins asked themselves when designing the lofts, and it inspired many design elements in the complex. People in Japan often refer to Helen Keller as the miracle worker. She might not have had the use of her eyes, but by augmenting her lost senses, she was able to visualize objects. Rather than viewing this as a miracle, Arakawa and Gins believe that all of us have the innate potential to be like Helen Keller. All of our bodies are different. Some of us are very tall, while others are very short. Creating a space that can fit all of us, in all our forms. That's one of the core ideas that guided the creation of the complex.
ヘレン・ケラーって人は言ってんだよ。私は最初から真っ暗で毎日毎秒真っ暗の中でね、一つ一つ作り上げていかなくちゃいけないわけだね。靴を履くにも靴はどんなものだ、足はどんなもの、 その時に出来上がってきた形っていうのはね、およそ僕たちが知ってるのと違う形。
It takes a certain amount of ingenuity living here.
People often comment that it must be difficult to live here, or that it's impressive that we've managed to make it work. My daughter's a year and a half old, but she's already lining her arches up with the floor. It feels like the lofts have forced me to live on their terms, like I'm really living my life here.
If we were able to live in an environment that upended our notions of common sense, it could draw out the latent abilities in our bodies. What's more, it might trigger changes in our physical forms. Eventually, given enough time, it might even stop us from dying. Causing that shift in everyday life, that shift in awareness, was the key motivation for building the complex.
Ten years before the construction of the lofts, Arakawa and Gins created another experiment. The site of Reversible Destiny, Yoro Park. It's located in Gifu Prefecture and receives 100,000 visitors annually.
The site is like the inside of a giant bowl. There's no horizontal, no vertical. They dared to create a place where our sense of up and down ceases to exist. What would become of our bodies in such a place? It forces us to physically manage our sense of distance, slope, and tilt in ways we're not accustomed to in everyday life. Sadly, when it first opened, several people hurt themselves at the site. The media had something of a field day. When reporters showed up, Arakawa asked them, "What's dangerous about it? Look at the kids. They're climbing without any instruction and using their hands to do it. Why can't adults do the same?" A lot of adults only use their legs to climb and end up falling as a result. For them, common sense gets in the way. It takes effort to change the way we do things. Kids, on the other hand, can acclimate themselves to an environment instantly. This was something Arakawa and Gins saw as precious and ended up dedicating significant research to.
The ideas of Arakawa and Gins didn't just inspire artists, but scientists and philosophers too.
The philosophy of artificial life and complex systems isn't something you can think about on a purely intellectual level. Sometimes inspiration comes in the heat of the moment. Arakawa's ideas were the same way. He often spoke of spontaneity in creation. That's what I saw as appealing about his work. There were all these areas that were relatable.
Ikegami Takashi was the creator of this android, Alter. It was heavily inspired by Arakawa and Gins. Their ideas continue to fuel his ruminations on the meaning of life. After the completion of the Reversible Destiny Lofts Mitaka, Arakawa worked to take the ideas behind the complex to the community, and from the community to the city.
この建物全部はひっついてんだ。だからどんな地震がしても倒れないんだ。ここのエネルギーは自給自足の電気だな。人間が死なないんだ。わかるかこれ言ってんの。いいか俺は死なないんだろ。お前たちは死んでも。すげえんだぞ。
Sadly, Arakawa passed away in 2010. Gins, who continued working on his projects after his death, followed suit in 2014.
Their physical bodies may have departed this mortal coil, but that wasn't the end of their mission. It continues to this day. I think that for us, carrying the torch forward and passing it on is just another exercise. It's part of the process of refusing to die, of choosing to not die.
The Reversible Destiny Lofts even come with their own instruction manual.
Arakawa and Gins thought, if you were going to spend so much time in your living space, why not have a methodology to it? The result was this list of 32 instructions. It just says, work in progress at the end. People are always taken aback when they see that. No one's ever heard of an instruction manual, ending with a to be continued. Arakawa and Gins works tend to end that way. They tell their users, hey, it's up to you to apply the finishing touches.
If you want to know Japan better, head to where the art is. After experiencing the innovative lofts, you can return to everyday life with a walk among the neighborhoods of Mitaka.
Great.
Thank you. I hope you enjoy the program, and thank you, Irene, for trying many ways to show the video better. So I feel like now you know a lot about the architecture. So from now on, I'd like to bring some interesting topics or questions for our discussion later. Let me share my screen. Okay, so the first topic question is like this. Does the Reversible Destiny Lofts match the concept of inclusive design? Nowadays, the concept of inclusive design is becoming a popular methodology in architecture field too, right? Well, some time ago, there was an online seminar focusing on the subject of inclusive design organized by RIBA, Royal Institute of British Architects. In the seminar, one of my colleagues at the Reversible Destiny Foundation, New York, gave a presentation on Arakawa and Gins architecture. Overall, the feedback was favorable one, but there were opinions that Arakawa and Gins architecture didn't fit the theme of inclusive design at all, because bumpy floor and slanted floor is definitely dangerous, just dangerous, no question like that. So in video, they referred to Helen Keller, right? Did you know about Helen Keller? She's quite famous in
Momoyo, can I interrupt you a second? Could you mind to click this, the full presentation view?
Oh, sure. Okay.
This little, yeah. And I mute myself and I leave on you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I was asking about Helen Keller, right? She's quite famous in, I think, in the both United States and Japan. But Helen Keller was a perfect model for Arakawa and Gins when they worked on the Reversible Destiny projects. They regarded her as a person who achieved in overcoming her difficulties using her body perception and abilities at maximum. So, and Arakawa and Gins were very enthusiastic in finding the way to prove the architecture, that architecture could help people live better, especially for people with handicap, physical and mental difficulties and challenges. For example, I'm going to show another slide. For example, you may wonder if the bumpy floor really is good for living space. Actually, we have received many elderly people for our tours, and they just loved the bumpy floor. Some of them told us that the ordinary flat floor is somehow dangerous for them. If you're wearing, for example, thick socks, it's slippery walking on the wooden and smooth surface floor. So those who have difficulties in walking need their canes on flat floor, according to those people who visited us. A lady with her cane one day told me that she felt she didn't need the cane in the lofts because she could feel her feet were clutching each bump. I will give you another example. One day, a blind person visited the lofts, and I was, and all our colleagues were a little bit concerned because she was totally blind. But she said this bumpy floor is wonderful because she could find where she was after walking on the floor carefully. Bumps became a great guide for her. And you can also find many vertical elements in this space, right? Like poles, and there's a ladder on your right side. Children can just play with them, climbing, while adults can hold themselves while they can while they walk through the lofts. So Arakawa and Gins architecture always have mixed reaction, which we think is a great opportunity to make improvements on our future projects. Let me show you another. Okay, this is the Reversible Destiny Park. The project name is Site of Reversible Destiny Yoro Park. It was a public project commissioned by Gifu Prefecture, Yoro Town, Gifu Prefecture. And in the video, we learned that on the opening day or the early days, some people got injured, unfortunately. Still, we see, sometimes we hear that the park had to call ambulance, unfortunately. So, of course, there are some people who get angry and say it's unbelievable that a public project, Gifu Prefecture spent so much money to just build a dangerous park, and they even charge you for admission. And on the other hand, there are many people say it's amazing park. Our children became crazy, and we really felt our body just released, or something like that. I'd like to hear your thoughts. What would you say about this kind of, undulating, slanted, angled space? This is a park, but for considering living space, is it possible to say that this is part of the concept of inclusive design? Okay. Next topic or question is, can architecture be medicine? I'd like to mention one one very important element about this loft, which is the sphere room. Obviously, this room is the most popular room for children. I will show you. Okay, this is the great pic which William sent to me. I just love this. When we have children for our tour, we don't have to explain so much because children can guide us. They can find how to fit themselves to the space immediately. They just run into the space and never want to come out. It's very helpful when we organize parties because kids can enjoy themselves in the sphere while adults can relax and enjoy the conversation apart. This shape of sphere is also the potential to heal people, I believe. The echo of the sound inside of the sphere is just amazing. So you can enjoy your favorite music or practice music instruments, and you can even practice karaoke singing, right? Okay. Now, let me show you another image. Okay, this is called squeeze machine or hug machine, developed by Dr. Temple Grandin. From her childhood, Dr. Grandin had standard autistic symptoms. The squeeze machine was originally developed to help her overcome problems of oversensitivity to touch. And if you step inside of the machine and lay down in the V-shaped space, you will get deep touch pressure and become completely relaxed, according to her thesis. Of course, if you want to know more about this machine, you can just Google hug machine, Grandin, etc. Well, Arakawa and Gins had a great respect to Dr. Grandin as a person who overcame her symptoms by herself. However, they thought that if your living space already has a space to calm you down and relax, that would be great and probably better. And their answer was this sphere room. We have received many autistic people to our tours too. Most of them just loved the sphere room. It seems they felt very calm inside. Well, I'm not talking negatively about the squeeze machine, but if you or your family have autistic symptoms, which you would like to have a squeeze machine or a sphere room? That's one of my questions too. Arakawa and Gins studied a lot about autistic people. There was a boy who was Arakawa and Gins' friend's son, whose name is Lucas. When Arakawa saw a picture of a fruit pear, that Lucas was eating, he became so impressed. I will share the image. Can you see? This is amazing. Arakawa and Gins made a poster of their book entitled Making Dying Illegal with Lucas' pear. When Arakawa saw this picture, he thought this was a wonderful way to perceive the world using his body and perception. Then Arakawa and Gins started making many computer drawings of ideal space for autistic people. Okay, let's see. So my last topic question. So how we can continue working on the Reversible Destiny projects? As you already know, Arakawa and Gins are not with us anymore. You might ask how we could continue working on the projects. And I think that is very good questions because we all are trying to explore possibilities in realizing Reversible Destiny projects today. I can say that we are now more active to work in collaboration with other parties. Let me give you one example. This is one of the unbuilt but just outstanding model of the bridge of Reversible Destiny. This bridge plan was first conceived when Arakawa and Gins received a commission from the township of Epinal in France, to build a bridge crossing over the Moselle River. The bridge was never realized. However, we are now making its virtual reality version with the scientists who are interested in realizing this work. Virtual reality will make it possible for people all over the world to experience it anywhere, anytime, right? Arakawa used to say that by crossing this bridge, you will be reborn as a new person, which obviously shows the concept of reversible destiny. Here are some other images of the bridge project. Okay. Well, technical part of the virtual reality project is supervised by Dr. Takashi Ikegami, who appeared in the TV program with the robot. Professor Ikegami is the prominent scholar of artificial life. This is one of his collaboration works with a Japanese actor. Do you know No Theater? No actor. It looks amazing, right? The robot reacts to his voice, and viewers can feel that there's certainly interaction between the No actor and the robot. Well, I once asked Professor Ikegami why he's interested in Arakawa and Gins. Ikegami answered me saying that artificial life is a study about life. It's exactly what Arakawa and Gins were doing. It's completely the same. Well, Arakawa and Gins used to say that there is the great potential in architecture, and architects should be aware of the huge responsibility, as we believe that architecture can make people live better, perhaps live forever, to defy death. Thank you.
Thank you, Momoyo. I was wondering, Momoyo, can you tell us a little bit about, because your background is in art, and just for the students to just understand you a little bit in the context of Arakawa and Gins, like there is this kind of interesting kind of blurred boundaries between art and architecture that exists within their work, and something that we might talk a little bit more about. But can you talk a little bit about how you got involved with Arakawa and Gins, and also how you're continuing to keep the kind of architecture kind of going, despite the fact that that's not necessarily your background?
Sure. When I met Arakawa, I was working at a gallery just back from Costa Rica after 5 years or so, and at that time I was planning to go back to Caribbean because I was so into the Caribbean art. But Arakawa said to me that he said to me, "Oh, okay, so you're working at a gallery." I used to work with galleries too. So for me, at the time, Arakawa was just a great artist, not architect. So I asked Arakawa, "Oh, so you used to work, so now you are not working with galleries?" And he said, "No." And I asked him, "So what you are doing now?" And he said, "Oh, would you like to know what I'm doing?" And I said, "Yes, sure." And then he started talking about the whole world, universe, Big Bang, and architecture nonstop for about 3 hours. And after 3 hours, I felt totally different. I just felt, okay, he's really genius or really crazy. Because I couldn't understand probably 80% of his talk at that time. But I felt a huge enthusiastic that he so into architecture, and I was surprised. Oh, but you are obviously great master of art, but why architecture? And he said, because art cannot. I found that art cannot change ourselves, our life, but architecture can do that. And so at that time, he was working on a proposal for Tokyo City Bay. Maybe you can't see in details, but you can get the idea, right? This is the proposal which Arakawa and Madeline Gins wanted to build in Tokyo Bay, where possible Olympic Games will be held. I don't know. And when I saw this image, I was very surprised because it was totally different from the idea of architecture. I felt very, the idea was very organic, and I just felt life from this rendering. So I became very interested in knowing more about Arakawa. And then sometime later, he asked me if I could help him and Gins establishing a Tokyo office. That was the beginning. Yeah.
And coming from that background of art, like now kind of, let's say, running an architecture office, like how do you, because I know you always say that you kind of preface things with you're not an architect. So how do you deal with that, that in between?
Well, I think this lofts was possible to be made because I was not an architect. because I just thought I learned architecture through Arakawa and Madeline Gins. So many people say, no, what they're doing is not architecture. They're artists. They're artist and poet. So it's different from architecture. But I didn't care because I thought the concept of Arakawa and Gins' Reversible Destiny was just amazing. And they kept saying that, your body should be the center. Your body is the main actor of the whole space which we are designing. So how can I say? I just followed their directions, and every time we had concerns. For example, when a contractor brought up questions like, "Oh, we cannot do this. We cannot make this. We cannot use this material for this, etc." I just kept saying, "Please do it," because Arakawa says that you can do it. So that's, I feel, sometimes I feel embarrassed because I was so innocent, I would say. But construction workers then, at the beginning, they were not happy, of course. They were just confusing, like, why we have to make such a strange architecture. This is weird. This is unbelievable. Why floor is bumpy? How can we keep this bumpy and slanted, and how, etc. But gradually, I saw them becoming more involved, and when we were about to complete the project, all the workers were very, very happy. And they kept saying, "Oh, Momoyo, let's keep working on Reversible Destiny architecture. I will be your support. I can be of your support." And they started making suggestions too. You have tatami mat room, and it will be great if you can put a bathtub, under the tatami mat or something like that.
I love it. So you convinced them.
Yeah. Or maybe Arakawa's enthusiasm convinced them. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, why don't we open up to questions? Irena, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I'm happy to discuss on the topics which I brought up, or if you have any questions, I'm happy to share.
Should we open up? Anybody have any questions? Feel free to jump up.
I have a question, a kind of questions, because you have been showing the machine. I don't remember the name.
Oh, hug machine.
Yeah, and then one of the questions you made. So I don't have a question. It's one of your questions. So you have been asking whether this sphere room that you have on your back, or any of the spaces that you have in the reversible foundation and the space you are right now, can instead kind of healing you, or can heal a person suffering autism, for example. So my question is whether you have been trying to use the space as a laboratory for kids having any kind of disability or kids suffering autism, because I don't know so much about the topic, but I know that the tactile world and the manner in which they an approach, and eventually also these colors can help in their, I don't know if rehabilitation, but so my question is whether you have been kind of conducting any kind of research with a university or trying at least to take data or just record and kind of see how certain children or certain adults. So, or eventually my question is whether you have been able to map behaviors in these spaces, because I think, yeah, there is a lot of opportunities to explore in many of the topics and questions you have been kind of open and yeah, open to the student.
Thank you. Well, regarding the question of preference in having a hug machine or squeeze machine or sphere room, it's a topic referred to autistic people, basically. But we have worked with therapists and physiotherapists to see if Reversible Destiny Lofts, a space like the Reversible Destiny Lofts, can help people who need rehabilitation. And the answer was yes. Many physiotherapists said that, told us that sphere room as well as bumpy floor, of course, depending on the body condition, but can support people with disabilities. Of course, not equally for everyone. For example, if someone is in wheelchair, obviously it's hard to walk through the space because of the, not because of the bumpy floor, but of poles, disturbing your space. But Arakawa and Madeline were always happy to study with medical professionals, scientists, philosophers. So our project is always collaboration work. And of course, it's still on the process, and it will take time to prove that this space is, really sure working for, rehabilitation need people or autistic people or elderly people. But we have a feeling that this can be one of the choice when we, for example, make our own living space, right? And as for children, we keep inviting school children and kindergarten kids for our tours, and we take photos and some reports, and probably in several years we can just make a scholarly report on that, I hope.
There's a question from Eden Wilson, which is a good question. I think kind of connected to what you're talking about, which is, do you involve children or community members in your design process? How do you get into the playful mindset? And I think that's an interesting question, just in terms of, because again, Madeline and Arakawa come from, again, the art background, and then bridge that into architecture. Is there a connection to the community in their work, or is it really just internal?
Sorry, so communal?
Yeah, so when do they work with the community through or did they work with the community when they were developing their design ideas? And or I guess how did they get so playful where did they come up with these ideas? Was it all theirs, or was it working with other people to generate these ideas?
According to Arakawa and Madeline, they had studied a lot about babies for a certain period of time. For example, I can show you a picture. This is the Making Dying Illegal book in English. And on the back, you can see a baby in rainbow colors, right? Arakawa and Madeline rent a house in the suburb of New York when they were still in, I think, in the 1980s or something. And they invited many families who had babies, and they just observed babies' reaction to space, making experimental works in cardboard, etc. And they were like children too. They just kept their sense of playful children all their lives. And so they admired kids, especially babies, up to 2 years old kids. It means that before we start talking, we perceive the world with our whole body, using all kind of senses, because we have, the kids until 2 years old still don't have cannot talk in words. So it's funny because Madeline Gins started her career as a poet, and she believed that the whole world can be described in words. But Arakawa always were not confident in using words, using language. And so they have been discussing through their life, but their main focus was to pull out all kind of senses that our body have, but we still don't know yet.
Interesting. I mean, I think there's a question which I think is connected to one of the things that I've talked about with you, Momoyo, which is about the color and the fact that these things aren't just random. They're actually, in the video, I think it was mentioned that when you look in one direction, you see 6 different colors, or 7, I can't remember. And one of the students is asking, how different would it be if they were monochrome and not colored? Can you just tell us a little bit about the kind of theory of color that they had and how that kind of informs space and our own kind of, I guess, psychological experience?
Yeah, if this space would have been monochrome, I won't be here. I won't. I don't want to be here. Yes, colors are very important, and I once asked Arakawa why they needed so many colors, because totally, I mean, exterior and interior, we have 14 different colors, and the number 14 doesn't matter because at the site of Reversible Disney, the Euro Park, has a building which has 24 colors. The important thing was to place colors, you know, as if we could feel like in nature. You know, you may feel like, oh, in nature we don't have so many colors, but if you look at sky or trees, flowers, ocean, you know, mountain, it's filled with so many colors, right? So the idea of having so many colors for this architecture is to incorporate the element of nature in your living space. Many buildings today, we see, you know, a white cube or just, you know, concrete building. We regard those architecture as modern and or, you know, cool. But I believe everyone wants to put, you know, green or, you know, colorful furniture or something with colors to make a good decoration, right? So it means that we human beings, as well as animals, need colors in our living space. So that's the idea of having so many colors in the building. If you can imagine, if this loft was painted in just 3 colors, like red, pink, and yellow, you may feel, oh, okay, I don't want that red because I prefer blue, or I prefer pink, but I don't like that yellow. So up to 6 colors, when you see, for example, 3 colors at a time, you automatically start counting the number of colors because it's easy. But if you see more than 6 colors, you just feel like, oh, colorful, because your eyesight try to avoid having so much information, and naturally trying to neutralize the strength of each color so that you won't feel, you know, the different strength of the color. That's why Arakawa and Madeline said, from wherever you are in the loft, you will see more than 6 colors.
Love that. Alex, you had a question?
Oh no, that was me. Sorry. Hi.
Oh, okay, Declan, go ahead. Well, you're just posing as Alex.
Yeah, sure. Regarding the Reversible Destiny Loft, there was a statement in the movie about how it eventually changes our physical being. Now, I understand how that happens in the short term through use, but what was the intended design process for affecting the long-term sort of physical being? And yeah, it was just, I'm wondering how you frame that when use of space is so subjective. There was a statement about how it actually changes the physical body, and that's what I was curious about. Like, how does the space do that?
Okay, so your question is how the space influence your body
in the long term. Yeah, in the long term.
Well, I have to ask the residents, but we have 2 kind of staying programs. One is short-term stay, and the other is long-term stay, long-term rent, 2-year rent, like other ordinary apartment in Japan. For short-term stay, you can just get fun time and you can enjoy. Probably you won't feel like the loft is like your home. But for long-term residents, this is where you're coming back from your work or school, right? So it's really different, I imagine. Unfortunately, I'm not living in the loft, so I can't really tell you the influence. But according to a family who spent like 4 years, actually the family had a kid when they moved in. He was 3 years old, and then they got a baby here, so they became 4. We were so excited to have a Reversible Destiny born baby. and she, we made many experimental things to her. I just wanted to tell you, the father of the family is a film director, and he made a documentary film which is called Children Who Won't Die. This is a DVD jacket. And to answer your question, I'm going to share this whole film with William, a limited term access, so that you can enjoy watching and you can see how residents are answering your question. Is that okay?
Yeah, thanks so much. Appreciate it. I also was wondering what was written on the floor at the Yoro Park. It was written in Japanese and I didn't understand it.
Sorry, you saw...
at the Yoro Park, Gifu Prefecture, Reversible Destiny Park, there was Japanese writing on the grounds near the Rockefeller Word. I was just wondering what that was.
I'm doing this because everybody else is doing it.
Sorry, maybe these weren't the questions you were expecting. I just really enjoyed the projects.
You say about the slide I shared previously?
Yeah, there was just an imagery looking over the slope and some Japanese writing on the right side of the image.
On the ground you're talking about?
Yeah.
Is this the
there
one?
it is. Yeah, I was just wondering if that was important to the project. I'm wondering what it says.
The map.
The map. Oh, the map. Okay. In Yoro Park, you will find, many maps of different countries combined on the ground. So in some minutes ago, you were in New York City map, and now you are at St. Petersburg, or you are in Beijing, etc. So it's as if you can easily across the borders. You might feel like that.
How did you all? Did you work on the side of Reversible Destiny, Euro Park? Did you?
Not really.
No. Because
No.
how did they go about convincing the community and the clients, to build? I mean, because it's pushing boundaries in terms of what architecture and parks and spaces typically do. So how did they go about actually making this happen?
Well, that's very important question. Because I also wondered how it became possible. And you know, whenever we see amazing projects, there are many you know, people who were backing up. And when Arakawa and Gins were trying to work on the Reversible Destiny Euro Park project, former Gifu Prefecture Museum director was a great supporter. And there was also a gallery based in Nagoya City, which is next city to Gifu, who's also very into the Arakawa art. So Arakawa and Madeline had great supporters in art field, and that director, I'm told that director of museum convinced the governor of Gifu, but it was kind of a tricky situation because the governor was not so interested in art. And he once asked to the director, "Who is that Arakawa Shusaku? I don't know him. And is it okay to ask him to work on the park in Gifu?" And the director said, well, Arakawa is very, very famous in the art field. You know, it's like Seiji Ozawa, the, you know, conductor of the orchestra in art field. And because the director knew that the governor really loved music. So the governor said, "Oh, he's like Seiji Ozawa in art field." And the director said, yes, we can't miss this opportunity. And then the governor said, "Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead." But of course, the governor got upset when, I was told that the governor got upset when he firstly met Arakawa because it's totally different from Seiji Ozawa. Yeah.
And so, and what has been the general reception of the site of Reversible Destiny? Has it been, do people like it? Is it, obviously it's controversial.
Yeah, obviously it's controversial. But Arakawa had many supporters in different fields. For example, before opening the park, there was a pre-open seminar for the local people. And Arakawa, it was a conference between Arakawa and doctor who's doctor of ear and nose and throat. And also the doctor Baba, who's a former director of Boston Nagoya Museum of Art, which means that doctor really who are very into art. And Jakucho Setouchi, who's a very, very famous, popular Japanese nun. And she has so many followers. And wherever she goes, the followers just follow her. So when the theme of the seminar was announced, it's, you know, it's Reversible Destiny. It's how was the, that the concept, the theme of the conference was not to die. Okay, of course, many elderly people just came to see, I'd love to know how not to die, because that Japanese nun is going to talk about not to die. Let's go. And so most of most of the part of the audience was so surprised because, you know, instead of learning how not to die, they were They just saw an artist with crazy passion to make something crazy. But people, of course, there were always mixed reactions, as I told you, but the people just admire to see this kind of large-scale project what did happen in Gifu Prefecture. Gifu Prefecture is, from Tokyo, it's like 3 hours by bullet train. It's not center of Tokyo, and in the Gifu Prefecture, Yoro Town is located in very remote area, mountainside. So somehow people think that Arakawa and Gins reversed the destiny of the Yoro Town.
Amazing. Are there any other questions from anyone? Don't be shy. So basically the site of Reversible Destiny has become a kind of pilgrimage for people as well. I know for people like architects like me. It's quite amazing. And so I guess, I think for me, what's so amazing about the work that you guys that Arakawa Gins did and the work that you continue to do, is that it's kind of pushing the boundaries in terms of, kind of questioning the limits of the body and how we can kind of engage and make ourselves more aware of our environments, which is something that we're really interested in our studio specifically. We're looking at kind of atmosphere and the effects of atmosphere on our kind of physiological kind of experience. There's a question, sorry, from Dylan. It seems that Arakawa and Gins' work is simultaneously natural and intuitive while also being built from quite esoteric theory. Their use of language and ideas relating to preventing death seems to confuse many people. What do you think is their true intent with using such language?
Sorry, I didn't
get no problem. So it's basically, the use of language, and obviously this comes from Madeline in her kind of writing and her poetry, but and ideas relating to preventing death seems to confuse people from some of the things that you're talking about in terms of what they actually mean by that. And so what do you think? Obviously they know and you mentioned this, they can't reverse our destiny or take away death from us, but what do you think their true intention in using that language is?
Thank you. Yeah, I also agree that sometimes it's too shocking to say, well, architecture against death, or to not to die, or architecture to live forever, something like that. But this is my personal opinion, but I think that Arakawa Gins had to declare something like strong when they wanted to explain what does reversible destiny exactly mean. Because if the message, the most important message of their works is to to say that if you try to learn more about your body ability, you can live better, and you have amazing things in your body. So try to find out how amazing things you have. Everyone have his or her own body, and we haven't learned so much about it. So before giving up something that you feel like you are given and you cannot change, try to think, oh, maybe I can change this if I use my body ability, or if I, maybe I can change it tomorrow. I can change it a year later. And from that point, your whole body, stem cell, every single cells can react to what you're feeling, maybe. So Arakawa and Gins' message is quite positive, because everyone can change their lives as Helen Keller achieved, and everyone can be like Helen Keller. And so don't give up, and believe in reversing your destiny, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's there's something about the fact that they're posing questions, and then they're using architecture as a way to begin to investigate those questions, and that as a kind of, for us as architects, it's a bit different than we don't really think of architects as having like a single project that you then experiment with through a variety, through different buildings, let's say, whereas, in kind of, I would say that's more of a art world, let's say. It's beautiful about this idea that architecture becomes, an experiment or a way to question, but and that operates at kind of multiple scales, from the color on the wall to the form of the space to the aggregation of all the spaces together. And I think there's something quite amazing about that there's a kind of theory behind the thinking. It's not just kind of making for the sake of making. There's actually real thought behind it. And I think for me, that's why I've always been drawn to the work, and it's so kind of nice to hear more details about it from you, and about their actual thinking behind those decisions, because it's it is something that you experience firsthand when you're in the work. It's a very kind of tactile and somewhat violent experience, which I think is quite positive in a sense. And so I think it's for you guys, for the students, it's an incredible kind of precedent to be at, and getting to know better, because it's not something that we're so familiar with. It's not kind of traditional architecture with a capital A. It's really questioning what space can do, and using architecture as a way to begin to experiment with that, which I think is really exciting. I don't know if there's any other questions.
I just saw a question from Rick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do many people seek compensation if they get injured at the park or within the lofts? Good question. Well, so far there isn't any person who got injured in the loft, but at the park, yes. We have seen many people just, falling down, and actually, I myself got injured twice or three times. One time I was guiding someone, and then I just fell down and I cut my lips. And the person was so upset because he saw me bleeding. I said, well, don't worry, be careful walking through the park, because, this is, this may happen to you. And for the second time I got injured, I cut my forehead again. I fell down. So it is dangerous in some way. But as far as I know, I don't know anyone who asked for compensation. One time, in very early days, after the opening ceremony, I was told that there was a lady who's over 70 years old or something. She fell down at the park and she broke her leg. She was sent to hospital by ambulance, and many press people wanted to write about that in article, of course, in negative way, because at that time, not so many people were, understanding well about the park. And Arakawa at that time was in Japan, and so he went to see the lady at the hospital. And media, press people wanted to have interview with her and Arakawa. And Arakawa said, "It's okay, yeah, just come and interview us. I'm going to apologize her." Then press people went to see them, and when they asked the lady, "How you broke your leg? Are you okay? Are you? The park was very dangerous, right?" Or something like that. And she said, "I was wearing kimono, and I was really enjoying the park. And at the bottom of the naval space, there were like step stones, and I wanted to just jump to the next stone, and I fell down. So it was my mistake. I'm not going to blame the park. I really like the park." And Arakawa said to the press people, "Okay, so you write the article exactly what she said, please." And sometimes we hear that some people complain about the access of the field because the site is like a huge ball shape, and for example, people in wheelchair or baby carriage, difficult to enjoy. But the park staff try to explain the concept of the reversible destiny, and I think they just accept as it is.
Fantastic. Are there any other questions?
Yeah. Has there ever been any pushback for the park to be sort of changed to like be made more like safe or accessible for like wheelchair disabilities and things like that?
Sorry, your question is people
So I just understood Ethan's question is, have you had to make any alterations to the park, or have there been discussions about making alterations to the park to respond to the issues that have arisen or to accessibility?
Yes, we are in close communication with park staff and the Gifu prefecture, because they are very alert in security issue in these days, of course. And let me show. Can show you. maybe. Well, it doesn't show exactly what I was showing. Oh, okay, on your right side, you can see.
Oh, you gotta share the screen first.
Oh,
Momoyo.
sorry,
Yep.
sorry.
No worries.
Okay, this is a main building of the Yoro Park. And can you see green here on the right, right side? And you can see, maybe you can see, there is a very deep hole. And it was very, very dangerous because you can just fall down. So Gifu Prefecture and Yoro Park asked us, to allow putting the, how do you say, rope to show people there is a hole. So every time they want to make additional elements to the built space, they ask us, and we communicate each other, and if we agree in putting something like this, we just say okay. So, but we haven't changed any. We haven't changed the shape of any part so far. We just added some warning sign or some cones showing here is the dangerous spot.
I love that. It's probably against Arakawa and Gins' ideas to put a cone there, I would imagine. But yeah, I guess you got to do what you got to do. So,
yeah.
Amazing. All right. Well, let me see if there are any other questions. Well, I really want to thank you, Momoyo, for taking your time today with us. It's hugely kind of beneficial for us to hear from you and to have this kind of experience firsthand. The work of Arakawa and Gins is hugely inspirational for me, and I know for my students as well. So thank you so much for taking your time today to be here with us. And I know that we'll continue this conversation kind of moving forward for sure. And I can see everyone's virtually clapping.
Thank you very much, and I hope you can come and visit us, and I hope to see you at the loft.
I will definitely be back.
Sure.
For sure.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure. And as Momoyo said, she's going to share a link for a video for a limited time for us to watch, which is an amazing opportunity.
I'm going to send you a link via email.
Fantastic.
With passcode, etc.
Amazing.
Thank you, Momoyo. It has been a very beautiful presentation.
Thank you very much.
I really like the way you kind of manage leaving a big space for questions and a conversation instead of making like a traditional lecture and bringing us. For sure, you have thousands of experience to share along all these years, but I think it's very generous on you just open the questions and leave the conversation open. And I'm sure the students are going to kind of reflect in this question, hopefully for the whole master and hopefully for the whole, professional career. So, and thank you for your work. And thank you, Billy, for put Momoyo in contact with the school. And I hope we can invite you soon again in a kind of workshop or something that, hopefully even live. Sooner than later. Thank you, Momoyo. Thank you, William. Thank you, all the students, for being there and engaged.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Momoyo, I'll be in touch with you via email.
Great.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good day. Thank you.